call the meeting to order at 6:03. So are there any additions or changes to the agenda? We have a couple of resignations that we need to tackle. So I'm going to add those. And we also have a budget update that was not directly on the schedule or on the agenda. So I'm going to add that, and I'll put that first since I see that Ed joined us. In fact, we have the principal's report and the superintendent's report first, but should we just move? I'd be happy to move the budget update up, unless you guys disagree with
I think if Ed's ready, I'm fine with that. Ed, are you okay? Ed, are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Hey, Nikki, I just wanted to add that some of the things under items for discussion are actually in my report.
Okay. So, yeah, so I think we'll do the budget update and then we'll do the principal's report so that we can axe off any of those things that you already hit.
No, that's good. And my report's mostly legislative. So
Okay.
Ed, is Ed ready to go? Ed, do you want to share your
we have to approve the minutes first.
Okay, well, you can keep that up, Ed.
Yeah, you can keep that up. I lost you guys. Okay. Did we get, actually, I say we have to approve the minutes. Do we have a copy of the minutes?
I got them.
Okay. You got them. Oh, there they are. Okay. So board members, I just found them, so I'm going to give a quick scan through them. Christine, you have your hand up? Nope. Okay. Okay. Are the rest of the board members ready? I'm going to take a motion to approve the minutes of March 15th, 2021.
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, Scott, followed by Beth. Okay, is there any discussion? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, we'll move straight to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes from March 15th, 2021, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Oh, Sarah?
I need to abstain. I'm not opposed.
Oh, that's right. You were. Yep.
I wasn't there,
okay.
So I need to abstain.
Okay, so that's 3 ayes and 1 abstention from Sarah.
So now we're ready to go to Ed now?
Yeah, unless there's any public that wants to say anything or bring up a topic. I think we're good. Okay. So yeah, let's move to the budget update. Ed, you're up.
So I sent out pretty late financial with the agenda around 11 o'clock this morning. I don't know if everyone got it. But essentially what it is just this page. And what it shows, the bottom line is right now we're projecting a $769,000 surplus. So a couple of things that are important for you to understand is that one is that when you go to the revenue side, I just highlighted the cell. You can see there's a deficit there from the state education spending grant of $69,306. That's because back in March of 2020, we got a grant from the federal government was called CRF-LEA, which was a COVID grant, COVID relief fund grant, and that grant allowed us to repurpose some of the money. And what we did was we repurposed the principals, Brittany and Christine's salaries in the months of July and August, because I made the case that you guys had, those guys being Brittany and Christine, spent 99.9% of their time on COVID-related business. And that was accepted. So what they're going to do is they're going to reduce the AOE grant to the Heartland by that $69,000. Keep in mind that those expenses were moved from the general fund to the COVID fund. So you're seeing a $69,000 deficit in the education spending grant, but yet those expenses were moved to another fund that it's a fund that's not being presented tonight. But we got that money in another venue. So the other one is the state transportation grant. Now the state transportation grant now goes to the supervisory union, and therefore you don't see that grant. When we budgeted for it, they had made that transition, and now they have, so it's not showing up on your budget. It's showing up at the supervisory union. And when we get into the expenditures, you'll see how that all works out as well. But when you go down, we wanted to take a look at the description and the expenditures that are down here. As you can see, there's a $223,000 surplus in wages. And that's made up of several different things. Now, you can see that there's I'm flipping to this screen because this breaks out the object code by teachers, teacher stipends, paraeducators, administrative, clerical. So the surplus that you're seeing is due to the fact that we had $172,000 worth of teachers pay that we didn't pay. We budgeted for, but we didn't pay. And that's made up of a couple of positions that weren't filled, one position that wasn't filled, a couple of positions that were teachers retired, and the people that took over those positions were at significantly lower wages. And in addition to that, there was a savings that was experienced by what I outlined with Christine and Brittany's wages moving over to that other fund. So that's why you're seeing on the expenditure side that $223,000. Now, you would expect when you see that significant amount of wages that were decreased, you're going to have the same kind of a offset in benefits, because benefits encompass everything from health insurance all the way down to professional development. Okay, so one of the big things in wages or benefits right now is HRAs, and we budgeted the full amount of HRAs. So for a family plan, for instance, when we budgeted for FY21, that was $4,200 that we budgeted, because that was the maximum amount that they could access in their HRA. So when we had people that moved, not only did we have people that moved out that were of higher wage, we also had people move in that either A, didn't need health insurance, or B, took a plan that was significantly less than what their predecessors had taken. We're seeing a lot of the first year, or a lot of the younger teachers take a silver plan because it's the least expensive plan, and therefore they get more for their paycheck. So they're starting to take advantage of that. So we saw a lot of savings in health insurance. We saw a lot of savings in HRAs. Now, the HRAs, I don't encumber the HRAs. So we've got another 3 months. People can access their HRAs. So I would expect that the HRAs would go down by a lot of money. So right now, if you take a look, you break out that area called benefits. The health insurance, we're saving $186,000. HRAs, $73,000. Now, again, we're liable for some of that because people will access that, and that 73,000 will go down. All right. FICA is down by 24, but that's because the wages were down by 223,000. Tuition reimbursement, that's for professional development. Right now, there's $40,000 there that's unspent. So that, again, could go down as we get towards the end of the year because more teachers might access that. Dental is down by 11,000. So overall, there's your $329,000. There's the makeup of that. So those two areas alone, that's over here. If you take those two together, that's $552,000 that we have a surplus in. Contracted services, the contracted services, because of how we're doing or how the learning is going this year, the remote, the hybrid model that we have had, we haven't accessed everything that we budgeted. Some of it's, maybe Christine, you could help me out here. HCRS, for instance. Some of it is We Are Hope. All of these other things we're not spending as much.
Yeah, some of it was stuff that I had put in the budget, Ed, for Leader and Me and Big Picture Learning that we just didn't, we didn't spend. If that helps.
Yeah, so it's, this one here, this is psychological services. $27,000 of that contracted services is unspent. And I don't know, I think that was We Are Hope, or
I think that was
psychological services.
I think it was a BI, Ed, that we're not using.
Okay.
A behavioral interventionist.
So that's where you see the maintenance and repair. We are moving into the spring. We could see that get spent more. I didn't encumber a lot there because this year has been kind of weird that way, in the sense that we've had some things break in Heartland that we don't normally, and we've been able to access the maintenance and repair budget. So I anticipate that $32,000 is going to decrease as we move towards the end of the year. Now the transportation piece is where, so this $256,000 is a combination of what you normally would have paid for transportation to first student for regular ed transportation, plus transportation that you didn't use for field trips, okay? So you're showing a surplus there of $256,000. Your tuition, your assessments up by $143,000. So how we accommodated the way that we're doing transportation this year is we took what you normally would have paid for your transportation and we subtracted out what you would have gotten in reimbursement, and we just took the balance and put it into an additional assessment. So that's why the assessment's up and the transportation's down. Postage, communication, and insurance is $4,300 in the red. Tuition is $35,000 in the red. Now that would have been a lot higher, but we were able to take some of the tuitions that were paid to high schools and use CRF LEA money to offset that, because we were able to get parents to say that they had moved to Heartland primarily because of the pandemic. So those tuitions we were able to take out. We saved probably around $80,000 that way.
That's awesome. Thank you guys for picking up on that and doing that.
And our travel, of course, is going to be in the black because we haven't had a lot of professional development or any travel anywhere. Assessments, I've already explained. Excess spending, we had budgeted for quite a bit, but apparently they haven't had to spend what they thought they were going to spend for students, that's the excess spending for regular education students who have services that go beyond the regular tuition that they pay to where they're going, whatever high school that is. And it's not part of their regular ed tuition. And they're not special ed. So we've got textbooks and supplies, 76,000 in the black. Energy is 7,900 in the black. And equipment, $8,000 in the black. And then we get down to dues, fees, and transfers. And that's because the last time we took a look at, at the end of March, I did a financial for the food program. So what makes up a large majority of dues, fees, and transfers is a transfer from the general fund to the food program, okay? And your transfer was budgeted as $111,000 was what we budgeted for the transfer to the food program in FY21. After I did the financials at the end of March, and I saw what it would cost to offset the expenditures. So what I look to do is I see what the expenditures are, I see what the reimbursements are, and whatever I need to make up to make revenues less expenditures zero, I use as a transfer. And when I do that, I then parse out whatever the total amount of the transfer is to each one of the schools by equalized pupil. And what it came out to be for you guys at the end of March was $46,000. So it's a significant savings from where we budgeted to the tune of $65,000. Now, we've got 3 more months, but what we are seeing is that that food program, the reimbursements that we normally get in the school year are, I don't know the nomenclature, I don't know how to describe it, but I will say that it's the regular lunch program or regular reimbursements. Well, what they're getting in lieu of that this year is they're getting the summer reimbursements. And the summer reimbursements are significantly higher than what you get during the regular school year. So that's why you're seeing the food program is generated or is getting reimbursed a lot more money than what they normally would get. So that's why we budgeted for it at the normal reimbursement rather than the summer program reimbursement. So again, overall, you go back to the summary, there's that 769, and all I'm doing is adding up the revenues, which is these two numbers, what I'm projecting is coming in and what we've already gotten, and I'm subtracting, what we're projecting we're going to spend from what we've already spent, and that's the number that's coming on. So that's why I was late on this, is that that's a scary number in the sense that it's really high. And I wanted to make sure that I hadn't overlooked something. So I kept looking and looking and looking. I've gone blind looking, and I can't seem to find anything quite right. I've got anything I've done wrong. Having said that, any questions?
Yeah, this is really helpful. Thank you. And I did get this, and I hope other people got it ahead of time to look at it a bit. It looks like the bulk of it is in wages and benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I've talked to Christine at length about that, and we went through it together, and it kind of runs counter to what you would think it, but when you look at what we've saved in terms of people that weren't hired to fill certain positions, and the transition from teachers that were older to teachers that are younger, you've experienced quite a turnaround. And again, the $329,000 that I'm showing in benefits, a large part of that is HRAs and professional development, and those both can go up as we go into towards the end of the year.
So one of my questions is, so when we budgeted with this budget last year, we met the excess spending threshold. Do we get to claw any of that back ever, or no?
No.
Yeah, that's fun.
Nice try.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's almost like a disincentive of
Yeah,
doing
see.
good budgeting. But, okay.
I have a question, Nikki.
Go ahead, Scott.
First of all, can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Hey, Ed, you're jogging my memory about the food program. Could you just tell us, from your point of view, what are the baskets of money, I'm going to call them baskets of monies, that run the food program in a school district? All the stuff that we don't normally see. Grants. For instance.
There are no real grants for the food program. It's more of all reimbursement and sales to students. What I'm trying to do right now is trying to bring up the quarterly food program. So I've combined both the summer program and the regular school program. So you got to remember the financials for the lunch program have gotten very confusing over the last few years because we keep toggling back and forth between the state wants me to designate summer and regular school year. Okay. So that's why when you look here, you see a fund of 602, 601, 601. 601 is the regular food program. 6002 is the summer food program. Last year, this was 601 and 602, but now it's 6002 and 6001. So what I've done is I've gone back and I've combined everybody, meaning I've taken what was at Wethersfield, what was at Heartland, and what was at Mount Scottney, and now it's all at the SU. So these are the revenues, right, that we've gotten. So you could see there's the food sales to adults, miscellaneous other revenue, and then the summer food program. They want me to record the revenue, although it's for the school year program, as a summer food program revenue. So that's why you've got the $388,000. This $141,877 is the money that I need to break even on the food program at this point. And that's what so down here are your expenditures. You've got management, your clerical, your health insurances, and then all of your encumbrances. So you've got these two columns are either what we're going to spend or what we've spent. So we've spent $640,000 and we anticipate spending $149,000 more. Now, at the beginning of the year, we did because this was really the first year we've done it at the SU, I worked with Craig and we came up with some rough encumbrances. Now, as you can see, food right now is $16,000 over budget. All right. That is probably going to run a little bit higher as we go to the end of the year. You're going to start to see this keep going up. So I would anticipate, that said, depending on what we get for reimbursements, your assessment at the school level will go up. Okay. So if you get down to the bottom here, this is your projected revenue. These are your projected expenditures. If I take this out and I make that a zero, you can see now it's $141,000 in the red. Okay. But if I go back and I say, I'm going to put it back in, it's zero. Then I go down here and I'll say, okay, what was the equalized pupil for 2021? Well, these are the percentages, and that's the percentage overall. It's 100%, right? So then I turn around and I say, okay, if I take that number, what is the actual assessment? So when I budgeted it, I said, I'm going to need $341,000. Well, right now I need 141. So when I use those percentages, right, that's what I come up with. I take the 141 and I multiply it by 32.64%. So Heartland's saving $65,000 as of the end of March. Over here, you can see the reimbursements, okay? August, well, the reimbursement was $25,000, but that made up both July and August together was $25,000. September was $47,000, $75,000. But look at what's outstanding in March, $99,000. That's the highest reimbursement I've ever seen. The state is apparently swimming in money because we have all of the dire predictions where we weren't going to have enough money is not the case. The supervisory union has the food program is, I don't know what they're going to do, but if this continues, I don't know what your assessment will be. It'll be a lot less than what it was. And then the other piece is that we just got $3.8 million for ESSER on top of what you budgeted for 22. So you've got lots of money in terms of how you want to spend it for education. But I digress.
Beth has a question.
Yeah, and so just to clarify, Scott, your original question was like, where does food money come from? You know, I think, and it really is the feds, USDA, for the federal lunch program and the summer program. And then from the state, because Vermont waived we don't have free or reduced lunch, we just have free lunch. So the state pays the difference between the federal rate for that. And then it's student buying meals and adults buying meals and any catering. There's also income potentially from buying things that are not on the menu. If you decide to sell chips and ice cream and soda or whatever else you want to allow, like all those extra things, then those are additional costs. Those other, like if folks just want to come in and buy like one milk or something like that. So those are really, if there's not a lot of grants, unless you're going specifically for like a large USDA grant. But again, that doesn't usually go toward food. It usually goes to equipment and infrastructure and things like that there. And so right now they waived the food service basically. So it continues to stay under this summer meal program. And that's what Ed was talking about, of like, they just continued it from when we went into that state of emergency last March, a year ago. They said, we're in the summer meal program. The reason they did that is because it can be, they were allowing anyone to come pick up meals. So a parent could come pick up meals. You used to not be able to do that. It's also a lot more flexible. So food service has a lot more flexibility of what they're serving when. So it's just a lot easier. And so they continued that for the whole school year, and they're going to continue that through August. And so again, it just makes it more flexible. But like Ed was saying, they have to code it under that other summer meal program, even though it's during the school, just because it's a different structure in that sense. And so as far as I know, what I've heard is that they'll go back to the regular regular school meal reimbursements next September, but we'll see.
Thank you, Beth.
And just to add,
And so we've also gotten,
but I did the summer meal program, Scott, and I don't know if this is what you were asking, but like 2 summers ago, the No Kid Hungry came out with a grant opportunity. So I wrote it for a grant, and they gave us $10,000 for the summer meals program. And it couldn't pay for directly for food, but it could pay for staffing, more marketing materials to get the word out and spread the word and have more sites available so that more kids could access it. So there are some grant opportunities. I know even Craig has written for grants. So you don't necessarily get them for food directly, but sometimes they can be garnered for things related to the program. And just right now, normally during the school year, it's paid under NLP, which is National Lunch Program. But in the summertime, it's paid under SFSP, which is Summer Food Program, in which case the payment is much, much higher, which because the meal pattern's a little different as far as the requirements about 1 milk or 2 or how many grains and those kinds of things that you have to have.
Thank you, Wendy.
so the other thing is we had a summer food program grant. So in July and August, the feds gave us a significant amount of money. I think it was $137,000 to run the summer food program. And then they also had a food program equipment grant that we also spent another $24,000. We got $24,000 for that. We've also gotten HVAC. We've gotten $178,000 there. I mean, the hits just keep on coming.
So
we've been audited on 3 of them already.
So Ed, is propane burned in the lunchroom?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
So does propane end up in like a regular school budget item, like, that go and is paid by the education fund and including our property taxpayers?
It's right here.
Okay. And how about?
It's not in the regular budget. It's in the food program budget.
Okay. I understand that. But is that the kind of thing that would be reimbursed by some of this monies that you're talking about, or is this going to be more the responsibility of Vermont taxpayers, property taxpayers?
Propane, you mean?
I'm trying to get an idea at what monies come from Vermont property taxpayers, such as the Ed Fund. And
65,000. What's budgeted for the Vermont Ed Fund would be what your assessment is. So when we budgeted for this, it's $341,000.
Okay.
That's what would have come from the Ed Fund, right there.
Here's another way to look at it. If you had a pie chart, what would the slice be, the percentage slice be for monies that folks send to school, lunch money? I'm going to call it lunch money, but it's really lunch and breakfast money. Students buying food.
There are no students buying food this year.
Well, I know what you're saying, Scott. So you want to know
in a regular year.
In Heartland, for instance, how much of your budget is it?
The SU. Your graph is for the SU. All your details there are for the SU. Just like.
Okay. So if I go like this, if I say equals this divided by this, right? I go center. I say percentage. It makes G18 $sign. From a budget perspective, $37.65% of the school budget for FY21 would have come from the state ed fund, which means that's generated by taxpayer property tax. If we do it by that way, but if we do it based on the actual, right?
I was looking for that student, the student purchasing of meals looks like 18%.
Well, that's actually how much we budget. It's the budget, but so if you take this is the actual.
That's okay. I mean, I think we probably, I threw this out there and it's taken long enough now.
I know what you're getting at, Scott. I mean,
so 2.49%. Let's see.
To me, the caregivers sending monies to school somehow with students is the part that the leap we're trying to make. It's more complicated than that, I understand, but that's the part that's, in my mind, would make it universal if that was.
Yeah, Scott. So you're basically saying, what would it take to basically put that 162,860 over onto the taxpayers, basically, instead of just the families that can pay?
But I totally,
Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm trying to say. But I just want to make the point, and I know you're not bending this, but it is already taxpayers. That's the thing. It's just that we have a little part of the town, which is the families of students, and then we have the whole community. And so it's already being paid by town people. But I just want to spread it.
Yeah, just a smaller portion.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Thank you, Ed.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Ed. Are there any more questions for Ed? I'm going to keep us going. Ed, that was really great. It's interesting to see where we are in the budget at this point.
Yeah. How often do you hear Ed say, we've just got tons of money coming in?
Yeah. Well, and so like going forward, my question is, so we hit the excess spending threshold last year. We're going to vote this year and we're at that threshold as well, but we're not spending anywhere near that. And so that's frustrating to me.
Well, you're already budgeted a year in advance. So you ended last year with a deficit. So
Right.
that carries into this year, but you're going to start next year with a surplus. So your
Right.
tax rate will go down next year if everything else holds true. And quite frankly, your tax rate next year, I've cautioned the principals and the administrators that they have to be really careful because there is a lot of money and they have to have programs that sunset when the money runs out, or you're going to be in a trap where you're going to have built a budget that's only sustainable when you have ESSER money or these different grants coming from the federal government, and it's not going to be there forever. So you just have to be careful how you spend it.
But what
Hey, Ed, just a quick question. Those ESSER funds, though, can be stretched out for 3 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
my question is like, if the town approves the budget, then we're approving the excess spending threshold. And does the budget change at all before that goes into the state, or we're just saying that that's where we are?
Well,
you see where I am?
So,
like we're just paying extra money that is like a penalty for having
the problem is that you're budgeting for years where you think you're going to be in session. So what happens is you've budgeted as if the kids are going to be there like they're normally there, and they're not. And in addition to that, you're going to get money from the federal government to offset some of the expenses that you've incurred. So you're saving money because you're not using money to do what you normally do, and you're getting paid to extra money to do what you have to do. So what you're asking me is, if does the fact that you're showing a surplus in FY21, is that going to impact your FY22 budget? And no, it's not. Only because you've already voted on your FY22 budget based on what you knew when you started your budgeting process.
Right.
So you can't change midstream now and say, oh, well, it looks good for next year, so we're going to change it. You can't do that. You have to go forward with it.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I'm really frustrated.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Because it seems like the bulk of our changes, I mean, yes, some of them are because we're not using staff, but other changes are because we hired staff that were more affordable, and we're not just
getting rewarded for that.
yeah, we're not getting rewarded for that. We're going to get penalized again. So, but it is what it is, and it's budgeting, and we budgeted responsibly, and we'll get penalized for it.
And that's why the funding formula comes up every single year in the legislature, and it came up again this year. The weighting study, all those pieces, because people do, I think generally people do see an inherent inequity or unfairness in some of what's going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying completely.
But it is what it is, so we're going to move on.
What is
Okay. Thank you, Ed.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks,
We'll
Ed.
give you a shout if we have more questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you're gonna take that presentation down? Maybe he won't. Yes,
There we go.
look at that. I was afraid he was gonna hang up and leave the presentation up there.
We'd be looking at numbers all night.
I don't think that.
Okay. So now we're on the principal's report.
All right, I'm going to present my screen. All right, can everybody see?
It's coming. Yep, we got it.
Okay, great. All right, so quite a bit to cover in here, so I'm going to go. Just stop me if you have questions along the way. We'll start with the positive. We just concluded March Madness, which was the little project our new music teacher, Rebecca Town, took on in March, and it was really fun. And the kids, each homeroom, voted for a song, and as you can see the bracket there, and there was a duo song, duel of the songs each day, and kids got to vote. And in the end, the winning song was Imagine by Imagine Dragons song called Believer, which was a 4th grade pick. So it was a fun, uplifting little competition we had during March. So start with something fun. So the Restructuring Committee, SU-wide committee, has been meeting. And some of what we came up with for important things that we want to carry forward after the pandemic is over in our schedules are listed here. There was consensus among the group that fewer transitions, lunch in the classrooms, the family style lunch was really impactful and something teachers really wanted to keep. We talked about in some schools, it wasn't as welcomed in 5-8. So at this point in the mock schedules we've created, we've left it in the classroom 5-8 and proposed that students in those grade levels work to design their own lunch period. And so that might change a little bit next year, but to start off with, we'll keep lunch in the classroom, or hope to keep lunch in the classroom. Partner teaming, integration of the related arts embedded in the classroom as the schedule allows was really important. Flexibility in how the core time is utilized, maintain smaller class sizes, efficiency of staffing with partner teams, sharing duties, and time for staff at the end of the day to get together for collaborative practices, which is planning and talking about students, instructional practice discussions, professional learning community type meetings, and common prep times during the day if possible. So those are the big ideas that were generated. And at the last meeting, I had prepared a mock schedule, which the committee looked at, and they were tasked with going back to their own schools to try to replicate the schedule as much as they could with the resources that they have in their buildings. And we meet again this Thursday, I believe, to see what schools came up with. Are there any questions about this? Okay, it's been a great committee to work with. Everybody's really worked together, and it's been a really collaborative process. So excited about that work. We'll keep you posted. Recovery planning is underway, and as I think I shared at in my last principal report, there are 3 areas we have to address: social emotional functioning, mental health and well-being, student engagement, and academic achievement and success. So Angie's our coordinator and is leading the process. And we've started our data collection and our needs assessment, and hired an assistant recovery coordinator, which you'll hear about later. So some of the things that we've put into motion are the Summer Academy. So those ESSER funds that Ed was referring to that do span 3 years, we are spending on Summer Academy, which Katie will update later in this presentation. A transitional K program, which we are in the middle of hiring for that position, and it is a bridge between pre-K and K for those young fives that really could potentially need an extra year in kindergarten. So that may be housed in Heartland this year. We're still working out the details on that, but we're really excited about that program. We will gather some information about kiddos at our kindergarten registration, which is coming up in May. And we've actually worked, this is an aside, but we've actually worked as an SU to come up with a common kindergarten registration process and kindergarten assessments. So also excited about that. Additional interventionists, because we will need them for the academic loss that we've noted in our data so far. We're going to try to tackle the middle school model, and in doing so, meet with our middle level teachers, kind of craft the vision of where we want middle school to go, which aligns with our strategic plan. And that may mean that some middle level endorsements need to be earned by some staff members. We're looking at Leader in Me as a framework to support our strategic plan, and embedding those costs within the recovery plan. And, you know, the program, as I've shared with you in the past, it ties into everything that we're doing. It actually kind of holds everything together. So that's in there. And some trainings in co-teaching, collaborative problem solving, trauma, and place-based learning. Those are all kind of the big picture items in the plan. I'm happy to take questions around that if there are any.
That sounds very thorough. Thanks, Christine.
Okay, good. We've been working hard. We actually worked last week and finalized some things, which felt good. So, you had asked me to come back with an outdoor equipment update. So I've done a little work around outdoor learning. I have met with our maintenance staff, and they've taken the carports down, the broken ones, and I've asked them to, jigsaw puzzle, figure out what we can use to put carports back up. John said the smaller carports, we have enough parts to put them back up. I think he said all of them. The medium-sized one, 4 are broken, and they'll require additional parts to be ordered, which is $500. They cost about, I think we paid $300 a piece. So, it's not like replacing them all, but it is a significant amount to replace the parts. So we're working on that because we do really want kids to be outside. We know how important that is. And teachers have asked, are they going back up? So we are working on that. The other part of outdoor learning, I shared with you last month, I met with Jennifer Waite around marking the property lines and looking for grant funding. So she's keeping her eyes open for that and will help with grant writing. But I did meet with Jill Rubin. She's a community member who helped raise money for the carports and additional outdoor equipment. And she is willing to do some help in fundraising. We actually met this morning, and she had some ideas around local businesses that do giving campaigns and looking for grant resources to really, the goal would be to fund phase 1 of the ADA accessible trail down into the woods, which is $70,000. She's thinking, she did it wasn't a donors choose, but a similar type program this summer. It might be best to hold off on that until we have some grant funding, and then we can work on matching that funding with, locally raised dollars. So that's as far as I've gotten with that. And I really told her, my goal would be, it's going to take a little bit of time to raise that money. So I would love to say we would start work on that trail this fall, but I don't know if that's realistic at this point. Questions or comments on the direction we're going with outdoor learning.
Do we have anyone like at the supervisory union level that's responsible for like grant writing or anything like that that can be helping?
Not to my knowledge, Beth. I mean, I think you helped me last time with the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation grant. And I think Jennifer will help, well, Angie, I hear Angie, the vacuum sound. Angie writes grants. I take that back. Angie,
I am a grants manager.
She is. I'm so sorry. It didn't cross my mind. Angie does all our grants.
I am the grants manager, but I deal with big grants.
Mm.
If what I find is the most helpful is if there's a team that's interested in writing the grant, that then they come through my office so that I can then support the work, because sometimes those grants require reporting and such. Mm-hmm. And also it helps to make the funding source clean. So for example, we get grants from Mount Scottney Hospital, and they have to write the check to Windsor Southeast, and then it's distributed. So, but that's basically it.
So Angie, are you saying you would help a little bit if needed?
If needed, I can. Although I was just writing an email back to David that I've got 3 major grants right now that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So, time right now is a little
I agree.
So that's all.
But moving forward, realistically, if we set a goal for, summer of 22, we want to start building this pathway down to the 17-acre woods. That seems manageable. Maybe that's.
I think the Byrne Foundation is one of the best grants to write, because they do not require any documentation. Once they write the check to you, you don't have to send any evidence that you actually use the funds for what you said you were using it, which of course you would, but.
Oh yes, I've written
well,
those
there's
before.
all kinds of compliance for the grants that I write.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was saying I'll certainly keep my eye open because I mean, in my mind, it's a lot easier to write one $200,000 grant than like 6 $20,000 grants or whatever. So if we can aim higher and try to maybe try to look into like there's Appalachian Mountain Club, and they have a foundation, and like other trails organizations and stuff. But I can do a little snooping around and see what I can find.
That would be great. And I think that
good idea, Wendy.
I can't see what did she write something?
She put Hypertherm Hope, and they're very local, and they do give larger amounts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that Jennifer will help with the grant writing as well. Because she works for Parks and Trails, and she's part of her work is dedicated to helping us with this, a little bit of her work. So I think she would be willing to help as well. So those are great resources. And yeah, Beth, if you want to do a little poking around, maybe we can meet and do some brainstorming as well.
Yeah, my other question just around outdoor learning is what kind of is there professional development opportunities being put out there? Because there's learning just like taking your classroom and moving it outside underneath the portico, that just to be outside and have fresh air, versus using the outdoors as a piece of your classroom and having it be an experience for the students and stuff. Is there plan PD around that and stuff with this?
Not specific. Right. It's in our ESSER plan, our recovery plan, but we haven't gotten to the details of what that is yet.
Great.
But I know there are programs out there.
Christine, can you just shoot Jill a note and thank her for her work with this? I just really appreciate the work that she did with the carport fundraising, and I just am really excited that somebody is willing to take this on and excited about it. So
absolutely.
Thank her.
Yep.
Thank her on behalf of us.
Sure, I can do that.
Angie, your hand is still raised, but I suspect. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So again, sorry, I you didn't come to mind, Angie. I apologize on that. Angie is
I
our.
got a quick question about the outdoor learning stuff, and I don't mean to, isn't it kind of critical that we establish in our whole community who owns the 17 acres? Isn't that the project that needs to happen ahead of monies, that because they're going to want to know who owns the land?
Yeah. Yes, Scott, absolutely. As you know, the town owns it. We have had discussion of potentially the school taking on that ownership. I talked to Jennifer a little bit about that, and we discussed a lease option. And I have not followed up with Dave at the town offices yet on that conversation. So that does need to happen before we do any work on that. But I know that I'm trying to think back. I did go to the Conservation Commission to talk about it when we originally had hired the company to do the site plan, and I believe Dave was at those meetings. So he's in the loop or in the know, but that was a while ago. So definitely need to follow up with him.
I mean, I don't mean to be a sourpuss about it, but I think one of the last Heartland meetings we had here, I thought something was expressed that the town thought that the continued activities down there were a little troubling to them, and perhaps their insurer.
There's always that worry of liability, right? If somebody gets hurt down there or if something happens. We do, I worked with Dave this summer. We do have we're listed as a rider, and I think I didn't say that right, but the town holds the insurance, but we are listed, and I don't have the right word, on that policy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'm not promoting a change. I just thought that was something that we talked about here a few months ago.
Yeah, we did. Especially, I know if we want to build anything permanent down there.
Right.
Or if you know, we shouldn't be down there maintaining the forest because it's a liability, right?
Yeah, you talked to Christine. Yeah. You said something. I mean, you gave an example of John Samuel not being able to even clean up a downed tree.
Right.
And so that's kind of
Yeah, so we need to figure that out.
Those still seem like kind of like things that could be worked out through some kind of perhaps a lease agreement. You know, maybe there doesn't need to be a ownership change.
Yeah, so I've got that on my list, and I'll look more into that. Okay. Any other questions, or I'm going to move on? Okay. Katie had to step away. I can't see if she's back, but she was going to give an update on Summer Academy. Katie, are you back?
I'm back.
Oh, good. Okay.
That's okay. So, a brief update on Summer Academy. We've sent out the first wave of letters to eligible students and their families. We received about a quarter of those back, affirmative that families wanted to participate. Our second group, we're going to this week align any special ed ESY, extended school year students, with those lists to make sure we're not missing any students. Then we're going to send out a second wave of letters based on students' April TMP scores for any students we might have missed that way. So trying to cover all of our bases to identify any students that are in direct need, that they are struggling in school or they need extra help over the summer before we open it up to anyone else that might be interested in going. We have about 40 staff that's indicated some level of working with us, either full-time or part-time over the 5 weeks. We'll see students in the morning. Our co-coordinators are Patty Pomelo and Jenny Duranzo, and they're really busy behind the scenes getting everything ready. Couple of pieces. At this point, we're finalizing the details, but in addition to having the rec program, support students in the afternoon. HCRS will also be providing a program on site after we're done with the academic piece in the morning, and BTG as well. And so we're, which is, and David, you'll have to help me with the letters BTG stands for. I never hear the whole name.
Bridging the Gap.
Thank you. The Bridging the Gap program, which has provided the after-school program in past years to the Windsor School. So we'll have a few options for students, which is pretty exciting. So that's where we're at. We're hoping, so if you hear of any families that are interested, they're getting letters, they can reach out to the principals at the school, and we're catching up to getting as many kids as we can. We anticipate having close to 100, and that looks like what we can handle for staffing as well, because just people are looking to take their vacation time too this summer. But lots of any new hires we've talked to have been interested in working, which is kind of exciting too. So that's the latest and greatest, and if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Katie. This is really exciting. I hope everything goes well.
Fingers crossed. We're planning on having fun. So I should probably put the plug in that this is planning on where discussions about math and slip and slides happen in the same sentence. So how we're going to make this academically enriching for students, but also fun.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Just briefly, I thought I'd give you some COVID updates. I'm sure you've heard the governor's plan, and so it brought some changes to schools, which David has communicated pretty clearly in his weekend updates. But just so you know, health checks are happening in the homes. So this morning at our health checks and on the buses, our job was to just greet families, and I made sure to say, be sure to be doing your temperature checks and your symptom checks at home. And then anybody that's been exposed to COVID, unless vaccinated, they need to obviously follow the health department guidance. If we have a confirmed case in a student or staff member, unvaccinated students or staff who have been identified as close contact should quarantine. Only school staff and students are still allowed in the building, but families can use the school playground now, which is exciting. Of course, masking and distancing are still in effect. 3 feet is allowed during class, 6 feet during lunches. We're still really hounding the hand washing and sanitizing and cleaning and disinfecting. We did get word that pods may mix if necessary, but we're going to try not to do that. And I think we can maintain what we have in place for the rest of the year. Travel, I'm sure you've heard, no quarantine is necessary for unvaccinated travelers, which is our student population. But if you are unvaccinated and travel out of the state, you must test within 72 hours. And so that's new. And some exciting news, small group band instruction can and will happen at Heartland starting on the 26th of April. Jamie Bernstein has worked last week to set up groups of no more than 3 kids, and she's read the guidance closely. She's going to meet with kids outside. If the weather is not great, we're going to try to get an outdoor covering for her to work outside. So we're excited about that. But those are the updates that were established a week or so ago. We pretty much finished track my progress. A few students still have to.
Christine, I'm going to go back to COVID for 1 second.
Yep.
Thank you. I was just wondering if either of you have gotten feedback from parents on sticking with the 1:30 schedule. I haven't, and I'm hoping that everybody.
No, I haven't heard a word, to be honest with you. I don't know, David, have you heard anything?
No. I was pretty clear in some earlier updates that we were going to stay with this right till the end of the year for a lot of scheduling reasons. Yeah, and so nobody seems to be pushing back.
That's fantastic. I was just wondering if I hadn't heard.
Yeah, and I also think that people do hear about other districts that are still, this group goes Monday, Tuesday, this group nobody goes Wednesday, and I think I think they appreciate the work that went into this plan and that we've got kids there 5 days a week.
Colleen, you got your hand raised.
Have you gotten any feedback about the pod change up, the advisories switching around?
A little bit. I heard from one parent directly, and I know the team heard from a few parents. And I would say probably 75% were thank you, positive, happy about the change, and then there were some with concerns. So I don't know if everyone in the Zoom is in the loop, but the 7-8 team made the decision that they're not mixing pods, but they're mixing cohorts. So just some changes among 7th grade and then among 8th grade homerooms. The kids have been together all year, and that's been wonderful. But it just felt like there needed to be a little bit of a change for kids for a number of reasons. So nothing dramatic.
I was going to say, what is the change then? I may not understand what.
So they're going to change up. They're going to make the change on after this week. There were some logistics that they needed to figure out. So it'll be Monday. They were hoping this week, but there were just some details that needed to be attended to.
So Colleen, I think what you're asking is,
yeah.
So they're switching up some of the students in the classes to give some, allow different students who are friends, from other groups to commingle for the remainder of the year. Since they've been in their primary groups, they haven't really had a chance to see other students. So I think that was one of the primary reasons, was to give some
variety,
social flexibility and variety.
Mm-hmm.
Around the classes.
So will they be around the kids they've been around all year if they make that change, or is it complete change?
No, they will be in. So for example, there are 3 8th grade cohorts at this point. And so they're going to mix up the kids in those three cohorts. So an 8th grader who's in a homeroom with 8 other kids right now, maybe in a homeroom with some of those same kids, but a few different ones. Does that make sense?
When you say homeroom, that's their all-day room, right?
That's their all-day room. Yes. Yes.
Sarah, you have your hand raised too.
I wasn't clear on what was happening, and then wondered if there were any parents that were concerned about it, since these guys have been in basically the same pod group. If there were any concerns about related to COVID.
No, I didn't hear any of that, because they're a pod structure already. They can commingle, and they do outside and at break time, but primarily they're in the same room all day with the same kids.
Okay.
Yeah. But this will change that.
Yep.
Just to be clear. Yeah. Sarah, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've gotten a few questions from parents after David's note about what the schedule will look like next year. And I think, I think a few people were kind of, the questions I got were sort of, wait a second, is school not going till 2:45 next year? And I said, hold on, there will be some announcements made, and but there seems to be some anxiety out there. So just a heads up. And I think, obviously, communication as soon as possible will be appreciated as people are making schedules and all of that.
Yeah, definitely. That is on our radar and part of the rescheduling task force discussions. So I think information is coming soon.
Yeah, to follow up on that, the last meeting, or what I hope to be the last meeting of that rescheduling and restructuring task force is this Thursday. So they were supposed to be gathering a lot of staff data back. We were looking at a whole bunch of different because a lot of it's the domino effect. This changes, that changes, and all of that stuff. So I think by the end of this week, we'll have a pretty good sense. I mean, it would be my hope, Sarah, to get it out, within the next, week or so, because people do need to plan, and and there are going to be, it is going to still be a little bit of a shorter day. It's not going to go to 2:45, and there'll be rationale for that, and we'll talk about that. But I want to have this last meeting on Thursday before we announce anything, officially. We're still expecting too that there'll be some lingering concerns about COVID. Some of our kids, if not most of our kids, will still not be vaccinated. We'll have a set of adults that will not be vaccinated. You can see that the state is still dealing with the fallout from some of the vaccinations. There's still spikes in parts of the state. My guess is, and I know the governor made this wonderful political announcement that July 4th, we are almost back to normal. But quite frankly, there's a lot of skepticism out there about that. So I think we just want to go carefully, be careful, and whatever we do, we want to make sure the kids can handle it and the staff, just like we did last year, essentially. But it'll certainly be a longer day. Whether it'll, I'm doubting that it's going to go to 2:45. But we need to get it out quickly. I agree with you, Sarah.
Okay. Colleen, did your question get answered?
It did. I had initially really thought, oh, this is great, because I know that my kids have not, there are people that they haven't even met. Like there's a couple of new kids that they feel like they don't know at all. But then I sensed some hesitancy with my kids today. I'm wondering if there was any grumbling about it, but that's.
Yeah, just there were a couple questions.
There's always something to grumble about. So
yeah. Change is hard. Change is hard. I think that once the change happens, they'll be okay. It's not a complete mix up, so they'll be with kids that they're currently with, but there'll be some changes. So.
And then I wondered if there was any implication for, the 8th graders that are going to graduate. They're not going to have normal with all the same group of people next year. So if anybody was having any kind of anxiety around that, I don't know. I'm not trying to create problems that aren't there.
I haven't heard. I know, I know Jean's been working with the 8th graders about, with high school, in terms of high school, and but yeah, graduation, end of the year activities are not going to look the same again for the kids. We will have a graduation, and the date has been set, June 9th at 4:00. It'll be outside likely, but we decided to hold off until Mother's Day to make final decisions around graduation as an entire SU. I'm excited that we get to have one, and we'll try to make it really special. But it's been a difficult year, and kids do have anxiety, and you see it when you're in classes with them, and when you hear them, some more than others, but it's definitely a reality that we have to address. And that's part of our recovery plan. Social emotional well-being of our kids is of utmost importance, because we know they can't learn when they're in those states. So yeah, if you hear more, just let me know. It's good for me to just know.
Christine, if I could chime in just quickly about the graduation piece. We did form a small 8th grade student advisory committee for graduation. I've met with them once, and I'm planning on meeting with them. I can't remember. I think it's next week. We're just kind of talking about some of the logistics a little bit, so they have some input, as well as just how to make it a little bit more unique to them, because things are a little funky this year, and we want it to be special. So I did start that right before break. So hopefully that will help a little bit. And they're supposed to take information back to the people in their groups and then bring it back to our meeting. So hopefully that will help. But
yeah, they get to be part of the planning a little bit.
Christine, could I ask one question? Just again, this is just a follow up to Colleen's question. So once those cohorts get reshuffled a little bit.
Mhm.
And I think you said that's going to start next Monday. So will that be the cohort they stay with for the rest of the year?
It will be, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. Got
Okay.
it. Yeah.
All right. On to TMP. We just finished. Well, we're not actually completely finished. There are a few kids that need to finish still. Didn't quite finish before the break, but these are the scores for the year, fall, winter, spring, by grade, and they are average scale scores, and you can see they're trending up in most cases. There was a little glitch in 5th grade. I'm not sure why. I haven't had time to chat with the teachers yet. But that's ELA, which is what we want to see. We want to see it trending up. And then here are the math scores, average scale scores by grade. Again, trending up. In 5th grade, not. So, I'm curious about why that might be. And I'll talk with the 5th grade teachers about what their thinking is and dive a little deeper. But overall, pretty good news. And then I think Nikki asked last meeting if I could look over time at a grade level, not follow a cohort. So I was able to do that. I went back to 17, 18. And these are interesting data, bits of data. It's by grade level. So as you can see, it's a mixed bag. I like to say. I mean, in some cases, you can see a trend down in a grade level, and in some cases, it went up this year, which you have to say, I wonder why that is. And it's not a clear pattern across all grade levels.
I think that's insight by itself, is that it's not a decrease.
Right.
Which is a good thing. It seems like the education that we're providing is on par with what we've done previous years.
I mean, it's interesting. I like to think about it like in this 8th grade, and classes are very different. So we're not comparing apples to apples when we look at this. But the current 8th grade right now is doing really well, even throughout, in a pandemic, in ELA, and I think in the same in math. So let me just look at this is math over the course of 4 years. So again, it varies by grade level over time. So
you can kind of see that class trending if you look at.
Yeah, if you look back, right?
Green, yellow, red, and blue. They're all
a
little higher.
Yeah.
Which kind of doesn't surprise me knowing those kids. But
yeah, so it's. I mean, I wasn't completely surprised by the data. I was interested to see what it would look like. And there are cases where over time scores have decreased. I think in both math and ELA in kindergarten. Let me just go back. Yeah. And as you heard me talk earlier about transitional K, some of the work we need to do in K is get our kids ready to learn at that age level, and that is a struggle sometimes. Kids just coming into kindergarten that aren't quite ready to be able to sit and focus and learn and do what they need to do.
Do the questions change from term to term?
Yeah, they do change. I believe. I'm not an expert. Angie may have more knowledge. And as you know, the target score increases. And there's Angie. I'll let her speak. I can hear her.
So track my progress. It's been around a long time, and for us, anyways, and I still don't thoroughly understand the algorithm it uses, but it does respond to students' answers. So it's computer responsive. And it is based on the Common Core language arts and math standards. And I think it's normed across the United States, which means that all students, like all fifth graders, taking it in the fall compared to all fifth graders. And so what is expected to be part of the content according to the Common Core in the fall. So fall, winter, spring. So it does become more sophisticated, but it's only 25 questions. So, I mean, how in depth can it be? What we like, I think what we really like about the data is just what it shows us in trends over time. And we have another tool, ExactPath, which we have used with a limited number of students the last few years. That gives us a more diagnostic view of a child. So we can then use this TMP to screen kids and then use ExactPath to get a deeper understanding of where their challenges are. But if you want to really dig into TMP data, you can click down to the question level and see how kids answered. You can also see how much time they're spending on assessment, on the tests. And our interventionists have gotten very good at that because that's what they do. They spend a lot of time on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I also I see we have Beth and Patty on the line too. I don't know from your experience, because you've been dealing with TMP for quite some time. Do you find that they change those questions up pretty significantly year to year, or what do you think?
Well, at the middle level, they do. So for sixth grade, they reflect the standards, like Angie said. They reflect the standards that are happening at that grade level, and then they also change within the season of the test. So
that's what I was wondering, if there was a big change between winter to spring for fifth graders. Maybe that accounts for that drop. Maybe in fifth grade, maybe the questions get harder, or we're not covering something.
It could be, yeah. It could be we had new students that came back that affected those scores in the spring.
Of course, the norming should take care of that, right? Theoretically.
Yeah.
But the other thing to think about with the norming, which is why I think, first of all, this is basically good news. All these slides are pretty much good news. And we're also finding that pretty consistent across the SU. But, you got to remember that this year it's being normed against other kids who are also in these COVID conditions, right? So you'd expect that, you'd have kind of that. You'd like to make sure that you were seeing continued growth. And for the most part, that's what I think you're seeing. Fall to winter to spring.
Yes, in these slides back here. Yeah.
And also when you look at the kindergarten, especially if you went to, I don't know, back to one of the other ones you had, Christine. So it's trending down a little bit. If that blue line in kindergarten is actually our third grade room, which is extremely small. And that was 2 classes back then. So that's one big thing. And then my other question would be, over time, how that transitional K will impact that early intervention time, and maybe we'll see that trend moving up through, just because they're getting more of what they need early on. We're not up into kindergarten when they're not ready. So that might be a big shift.
That's the hope. Yeah.
You did a great job the way you laid it out, though, Christine.
Well, good.
Christine, thank you for doing that, because it really just,
my pleasure.
I know the concern is that because we've got the shorter day that we
still on track.
Our learning capabilities decreased, and this shows that it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's nice.
Good. Okay. So just some additional updates to keep you informed of what we're doing.
Excuse me, Christine.
Yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment before you moved on from the data.
Yep.
What our data is showing, I think, too, with Track My Progress and what we're going to be using in our recovery planning, is that whatever we were doing for interventions and for the way we structured our school day, we aren't seeing a big decline in our kids over time as other schools have reported. So this is data that supports our recovery plan for additional intervention supports. Additional adults and smaller class sizes.
Thanks, Angie. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide, but so we have a couple of resignations, and so maybe now's a good time to talk about those as I'm giving you some updates.
Yeah, so we'll shift resignations up to the principal's report.
Okay, sorry about that. I put these in earlier and thought the resignations would happen at the beginning, and they didn't. It just dawned on me. So I can report that we've had two. Let me. I'm going to unshare my screen real quick. I'm going to go back to the meeting. So we have two resignations tonight. One is our 7th, 8th grade social studies teacher, Bailey Parker. He's written a letter of resignation, which I'm happy to read if you think that's appropriate. Nikki, would you like me to do that?
That's fine.
Okay. So
Yeah, I think if you read it, I don't know if everybody got it.
Okay. So it's addressed to Dr. Baker, and it says, I would like to tender my resignation from my position as the middle school social studies position at Heartland Elementary School effective June 30th, 2021. I am immensely grateful for my time in Heartland and the opportunity to teach at the school that raised me with the teachers that taught me. I have nothing but wonderful memories and experiences from my time at Heartland. I've learned so much from my time here, and I will carry those lessons with me as I move forward in my teaching career. I've decided it is the right time to pursue teaching opportunities at the high school level. This is not an easy decision, and I will sincerely miss my colleagues and students. Thank you for all your support and encouragement as I have grown over these past 2 years. If I can be of any assistance before I leave, please do not hesitate to let me know. I wish you all nothing but the best. And that is from Bailey Parker. Best regards from Bailey Parker. So I think we have to, do you want to accept them at the same time or one at a time? I have one more.
We'll do one at a time. So I think, is there a motion to accept Bailey's resignation?
I can motion to accept that.
Okay. So Beth, and then a second.
Second.
Colleen. Okay. Any discussion? I think we'll just say thank you to Bailey for being with us, and hopefully he learned a bunch while he was here. So, okay, so we'll vote if there's no further discussion. All those in favor of accepting Bailey Parker's resignation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
All right, the second one, yeah, is from Miss Preston, who's here tonight, and dawned on me that she hadn't written one officially, so I asked her quickly to write one, which she did before this meeting. So I'll read it to you. It is, to whom it may concern, I'm writing today to formally resign from my position as the assistant principal at Heartland Elementary School. While I'm sad to be leaving Heartland after 4 great years, I'm excited to be moving into a new position at the WSESU. As the Assistant Recovery Coordinator, I thank you all for your support during my time at Heartland and look forward to working with you in my new position. And that is signed from Brittany, which if you want to not accept it, that'd be great. Just kidding. Oh, Brittany's done an outstanding job. She will, I say that as a joke because she knows I support her. She's going to make an amazing Assistant Recovery Coordinator, and we get to keep her within the SU. So that is good news. Sad for Heartland, but happy for Brittany and the SU. So
I'll agree. Sad for Heartland, but happy for Brittany.
Yeah.
And I'll also say that I was not surprised because when we interviewed Brittany,
we knew it wasn't forever. We knew
Brittany wasn't going to stay forever. She was moving on and up, and I'm just really happy that we got you for the time that we got you, and that you are moving out and up. So thanks, Brittany.
So thank you, Nikki.
Somebody's got to make a motion.
Yeah, so I need a motion.
I'll second.
Who first did? I didn't hear it first. Oh, okay, thanks. And yes, that is a word.
Beat me as well.
Okay. Any further discussion? No, I think we'll just vote. Okay, all those in favor of accepting Brittany's resignation with regrets, say aye. Aye. Awesome. Any opposed? No. Thank you, Brittany. Thanks, Christine.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll keep her busy. Don't worry.
I have no doubt. I'll be back. Don't worry. You're not
And you
gonna be a
better come
stranger.
visit our meetings when we're back in person, because
Yeah.
this is just unfair.
Absolutely.
We don't get to say
Absolutely.
So just to keep you updated, I did post the job. It is hiring season, so time is of the essence. Posted it. We have some applicants. We formed a committee. We are starting interviews later this week. We're going to start with 4 interviews Wednesday and Thursday, I believe, this week. And we have pretty good representation from all aspects of the school. David's going to join. Katie's going to represent special ed. So I'm feeling confident that we'll find the right person. And I've told Brittany, I've asked Brittany nicely to start like listing everything she does and getting everything in order. So it's a smooth transition for the new person. And she will do that with explicit detail, because that's Brittany. So we have started interviews for, posted the social studies position and started interviewing last week. I think we'll bring a candidate next time. I don't think we're ready tonight. And other positions that we are posting or have posted as part of our recovery plan. You heard Angie say that we, or me, one of us said, intervention is going to be critical, especially in year 1. So we are allowed to fund our interventionist, our local interventionist position with ESSER funds, which allows me to hire 2 positions, which will keep our class sizes smaller, which we think is really, really critical next year. As if you can remember back, we were going to combine some grades pre-COVID and would have to combine them next year if it weren't for this funding. So we would have some 2, 3, 4 classes, which would be around 21 or 22 students each, and 5, 6, there would be some combination. So with this plan, we can hire a 4th grade and a 6th grade position to keep the class sizes down, at least for, a year, maybe 2. We're going to have to track the data carefully, and that's some of what Brittany's going to be doing. But I think the teachers are really relieved by that, to be honest with you. And it's what kids need next year. Just after being in classrooms and listening to some of their thoughts and worries, it's the right thing to do. And I feel fortunate that we have some funding to do that. And then we've got some interventionist positions that are title funded. So Angie and I have been working and figuring that out, and those are posted. So if you know anyone, we are in the hiring phase. And that is, I didn't share my screen back up, but that's the end of my report. Angie, did you have wellness survey data to present tonight? Okay, I'll present it then.
I do. I sent the survey on the 9th. We had 55 responses. I think most of those, it looks like there's not a ton of duplicates. But I mean, the trend is definitely toward, you may recall we had 5 levels of stress that staff could report out on. And the trend is definitely going down. We had more 3s and 4s. The bulk of it, like 57% of it, 58% of it was in 3s and 4 level of stress. And some of the things they're reporting that are impacting their negative, some people said parent conferences were stressful, that would make sense. April conferences are often, let's get it together, and several, some kids, especially our older kids, our 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders, we've been hearing about their afternoon class attendance and engagement has just been very poor. And so it was I imagine that there were some tough conversations that had to be had about student learning. And so, I'm just briefly looking over the comments, student engagement, stress, but the things that were positively impacting were vacation is coming and warm weather. So I think that we definitely had the whole gamut of weather last week. So I'm hoping our staff were able to enjoy and get refreshed and renewed on vacation. So that's it.
Thanks, Angie.
We today, I just wanted to say, today we sent out two surveys, one for staff, one for students, to try to get data for recovery planning. We're looking at the 3 areas of student engagement, student academics, academic success, and mental well-being. So we've asked our staff to find 5 or 10 minutes, probably less than 5 minutes, to do the student survey with their students in homeroom and advisory. And also we've asked them to take 3 to 5 minutes. Maybe we said 10 minutes, which was probably longer than necessary to do the staff survey. So our poor staff have a lot of surveys, but it's very important data that we will be using to get their voice. We wanted their perceptions on what's happening with the kids' learning and mental well-being. So,
All right, that concludes the principal report.
Christine, I have one question back on the hiring. Are we hiring these as temporary positions? Are they permanent? Like, how are we doing this?
They're 1 year positions. They're always 1 year positions for teaching staff. You know, we know they're not permanent, and to be quite honest, you know, the other option we talked about, and I talked about it with interventionists, is interventionists stay in the classrooms as they did this year, and just ask their preference on it. So that may be something that happens in the future. So it's really going to be dependent on what the data shows us. After a year, I think we mapped out the first year completely. We haven't, oh no, we actually mapped out 3 years in the ESSER funds. Am I correct, Angie, if I'm remembering back? We did. So there's potential that they're there for more than a year, but you know, if the data trends in a different way, you know, who knows, that can be adjusted.
But also in terms of class sizes, they're going down. And so you have a 3rd grade class that's coming up that's only 1 class. And so that may impact then the 6th grade position moving forward. So you wouldn't need that additional staff member because there's only one class moving up. So I think staff or student numbers is going to have a massive impact on that in the next 3 years.
Yeah,
right. That's what I'm worried about, is that I just don't want to, I just, like, our biggest expense is in staffing, and with declining enrollment, if that trend continues, I don't want to be in a position where we thought that we were hiring more people permanently when then we're looking to cut people in 2 or 3 years, and it'll just suck. Anyway, like, this is the right thing to do now, and I just am worried about how it looks in the future.
Yeah, I think we're being pretty transparent about it, and people know, you know, this is not money that we're going to have forever, and we need to use it wisely. Part of the plan that and kids need that right now. There's no question. But you know, the more exciting part, you know, we're gonna really tackle middle level, and you know, have set some money aside for endorsements and really look at the middle school model, which is what we're trying to create. So some of that that planning will carry over and will not need funding, you know, after the initial couple of years. So there are parts of it that that we're looking at in that realm as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not questioning that we don't need it now. It's just, I'm worried about what we're going to look like in a few years. Scott, you had your hand raised.
Thank you. Thank you. I may be putting too much emphasis on Brittany's title of assistant principal, but it seems, and my memory may not be serving me, but this is the first I've heard of an immediate rehiring initiative, and that hasn't come to the board. I haven't heard that from David or Christine. I think as a board member, I probably should have heard that from David, but is this customarily something that the building principal hires, David, or can you just explain what's happening right now?
Yeah, that's a good question, Scott. Christine and I did certainly talk about it. I mean, usually what you do is you look at, kind of who's the direct report, right? I mean, if like Christine reports to the board and to me, so the board and I would get very involved, in her replacement. The assistant principal reports to Christine. It's a budgeted position. So consequently, Christine, at least from my experience, has, the authority with certain input and consultation of colleagues and people she thinks would help her in making that decision, would make that decision. Ultimately, the board has to approve that, that contract. But that's how I've always looked at it, Scott. But it's a good question without a doubt. And to be honest with you, because of the flurry of the last couple of weeks, I'm not exactly sure when Brittany, she had to first of all confirm that SU position, and then make her decision. As you can see, even up until today, and that was just oversight. Yeah. We didn't have an official resignation, but I don't know who we notified and didn't notify. I thought we did tell the board, but we may not.
We did. I sent an email to the board. I think the day she accepted.
Yes, you did. You definitely did. I recall that. I'm not accusing you of not keeping.
No, I would share that the hiring committee, when Brittany was hired, I led. I wasn't even in my role yet, to be honest with you. I think it was the late spring. I started, my contract started in July, but we needed to hire, I think it was June. It was a committee of teachers, special educators.
I was on that committee.
And I think Nikki was on that committee.
I'm pretty sure everybody was on that committee.
Yeah, it was a big committee.
It was a big committee.
It was a
we took the principal search committee and turned it into you.
It was a big committee.
That's probably what we did.
Yeah.
That's probably exactly what we did.
And it was, and so thinking about this process, and I did talk to David about it, who should be on it. And if the board wants representation on it, I have absolutely no concern about that whatsoever. I am moving quickly, Scott, and it's because it's the hiring season, and I want to find the right person. And there's risk of losing people if I take it slowly. I forgot what I was going to say. But we're also doing it in this format, and so a larger group is harder, in my opinion, in an interview like this through Zoom. So we've kept most of the interview committees so far relatively manageable in Zoom, so that we can see everybody on the screen without, having to go to a different window or, page 2. So that was another consideration.
I'll tell you what I'm remembering is that Heartland has had kind of a hot and cold feelings about extra administrators at the elementary school. And so, and we were firm about the format that we have now. At the same time, I had the same sort of ideas run through my head that Nicole just brought voice to: declining enrollment, what's going to happen after several years of COVID relief money running out. And so I was just thinking about, honestly, about that when we heard about Brittany's moving to the other part of the district, and whether or not one little satellite K-8 needed 2 principals or not.
I will say 100% yes. I can't do Brittany's job and my job. It's impossible. So I don't know if that's what you wanted to hear, but
do all this elementaries have 2 principals?
Well, actually, the Montesquieu School District now has 3 co-principals, and they're doing the whole district. So, and they're probably about twice the size of Heartland. Wethersfield, they have this conversation every single year about the need for an assistant, and and it never quite makes that final budget cut. But no, so they do not have one, Scott.
But David, do they have less students?
They do.
They do. They're,
and if you ask Jean Marie, she desperately needs an assistant principal.
yeah, she talks about it every year. There's no question. Yeah, I think Weathersfield's about maybe 230, and you're up closer to 300. I don't know when everybody's back what that will look like, but Scott, I certainly respect you having the transparency to speak that, because it's to me, we went through a transition where we had a dean of students, and then we moved that to the assistant principal realm, and that's been in place pretty much, I think, all through Brittany's tenure and part of Angie's tenure. So it just never occurred to me that it would be anything we wouldn't, and it's budgeted for next year, that we wouldn't support. So, but if somehow we slipped up, I'll take that, not Christine, because we did talk about what we should do, in terms of just getting it advertised. Look, this is the hiring season. Let's get going, because we don't want to lose good candidates at this point.
Is an assistant principal something that is always such intensely needed position that you couldn't share it between Heartland and Albert Bridge, or one between Albert Bridge and Wethersfield, or something like that?
Well, that would just take some unique kinds of conversations with two separate districts. It doesn't in Mount Escutney, because they're a single district, right? So they're using a shared leadership model this year. But I'll tell you, it's a conversation Wethersfield has every year. And if budget season, right now we're a little bit, I mean, not to use Ed's terms, but we're a little bit flush with money. But that's not going to be the case over the next couple of years. And I know that Christine is very good about sharing resources across the SU. So if that's a conversation both boards wanted to have at some point, Wethersfield and Heartland, I don't think it would be a terrible conversation to have in the future.
It would be hard in some regards, and I'm sure Brittany can speak to this. When things blow up, Scott, and they do on a daily basis.
Not always on a Monday.
It's pretty much every day, but if you're not there at the school to handle it, and you have to drive, 15 minutes to get there, that's a challenge. That would be a problem to solve for sure. But Brittany can weigh in, because she's.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of when you're looking at the finance piece of it, my job could absolutely be broken up into multiple positions of behavior specialists in the building, but then you're spending the exact same amount of money to do what I do. And I can do more because I do the supervision and evaluation piece that those behavior people can't do. So I could do, I do those jobs, and I do the HHB stuff, as well as, supervision evaluation. So I feel like you may end up spending the exact same amount of money with less bang for your buck, and just have more people in a building, and ultimately throwing more people on the same problem with less leadership, I guess, supervision responsibilities might not solve the problems in the long run. So if you're looking at, but at the same time, I'm ultimately it's the board and Christine and David's decision on that. But you would need more people at a lower cost that are highly trained behavior specialists to run that.
Well, one of the things Christine and I have talked about along the lines of what Brittany just shared is, as we continue to build up the reserve around BCBAs, for example, behavior specialists, applied behavior specialists, our SEIs, our social emotional interventionists, as we begin to build that capacity, because to me, you don't ever want your assistant principal, and I think Brittany and Christine have talked about this at length, to become sort of a glorified behavior specialist, right? Because we could have a glorified behavior specialist doing that job. Quite frankly, the reason we have Brittany's skill set and we want to replace Brittany's skill set, is for all the other things, the data collection and coordination, the supervision and evaluation of staff. You think about most industries, there are very few industries and corporations where you've got a manager and then 40 reports, so 45 people reporting to that manager. It doesn't happen. And that's one of the things I think in public education, and we won't get into it now because it's getting late, but I do think, I guess my point to Scott would be, it's not a horrible conversation at some point. I don't think this is the right time, coming out of COVID, but I think we just see what skill set the next person brings. We then look at how we can build that behavioral capacity, because as Brittany will tell you, and Angie will tell you, and I will tell you as an assistant principal, when a lot of your day is behavior, it gets old after a while. So I think it's really looking at the capacity of the entire system to deal with those day-to-day struggles that Christine is talking about. But yeah. I think it's a great point, Scott. It's just that we didn't feel we had time to have that conversation, right now, and we just needed to get Brittany replaced with a good quality, solid person.
Thank you.
Angie, you had your hand raised.
That is a legit hand raise too. So I also want to say that in no small way does the assistant principal support the principal in doing the principal work. And you may remember, as many of you were here, when Jeff moved that position from dean of students to assistant principal, he needed somebody with the credential to be able to make decisions if he wasn't in the building. That is super important. And also, Brittany, I'm sure she handles all the parent issues that come around behavior. She is the first line there so that Christine can do her job of running that building. So I highly support the licensed position there.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me, Angie. I remember that exactly that initiative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The last thing I'd say about it is that Christine and I talked at length this year, even last year, about you've built so much capacity underneath me that now that this position can start to move towards more of the proactive intervention pieces, working on our student success plans, analyzing the data, and start moving academic and behavior in a really proactive way versus responding to calls every 5 minutes or so to behaviors that are happening in the minute, which I hope I'll be able to set the next person up into continuing to move in that direction, because we have built such massive capacity underneath me to be able to do that. So if I can take some of that off of Christine and put that on me, she'll be able to do some other extremely important work to move the entire school in the right direction, and I can take that intervention piece. So that's one thing to consider, and I hope that we can continue that work moving forward.
Thank you, Brittany.
Okay, so I think we're done with the principal's report now. So let's move on to the superintendent's report.
I think we should ask some more questions of Christine. What do you think? I don't think why would we let her off the hook that easy? That's just not okay. Yeah, and mine's gonna be really quick, because Christine, as always, covers it all. And a matter of fact, not only did she cover stuff that was, that I might have reported out, but I'd rather have her do it, because I think at the ground level you get a better sense. But also she covered about 4 of the agenda items that are so I know it looks late, but we're probably not going to have to spend a lot of time on those agenda items, because we've already discussed a lot of those. I wanted to just focus on a couple of legislative pieces, because we've been talking about some of these over time, and I just want to give you a quick update on some of them. First of all, the universal meals, right? That's been a hot topic. And Beth, you could probably correct me if I'm wrong here, but it looks like right now that's switched into a sort of a universal breakfast dialogue right now, rather than just a breakfast and lunch dialogue. But I'm not sure whether, I don't have a crystal ball. I know that S100 is still on the table, but it doesn't seem like it's going to have much legs for just kind of outlay of universal lunch. Beth, did you have anything to add to that at this point? Are you staying on top of that piece of legislation?
I am some, but yeah, so it hasn't been 100% discerned if they're going to go to pushing for just universal breakfast for now, or not. They're kind of waiting a little bit more, but yeah, we'll be doing some advocacy work around that, I think, next week, like working one-on-one with senators and stuff and trying to understand the concerns and things lie. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, the hope is that if we can't push the full breakfast and lunch, that we can at least do breakfast. And that's just a stepping stone of like, we're not stopping there. It just means we're just putting it off for that other year to see what the impact would be.
No, that's good. So I know we've talked about that one, and we'll keep you posted. H81, which was the healthcare revisions that were being discussed. Now the statewide task force or commission negotiates healthcare costs for all educators in the state. And what they did is they put in place a sliding scale for support staff members, so that no support staff member would pay more than 80% of their total gross salary toward healthcare. And it sounded like a fair piece of legislation. The governor allowed it to go into law by not sign. He just didn't sign it. And apparently when he doesn't sign it, it just goes into law. So the only other piece in that is they did pull superintendents out of that negotiation piece because they felt that was a conflict of interest. Superintendents sit at the bargaining tables, and also, so that was just a little piece there. Literacy is a hot topic in Montpelier right now, and that literacy bill looks like there's a combination of Senate and House folks sort of getting together to try to talk about that. It looks like where that's going to end up is with about $3 million statewide to be put toward literacy initiatives that'll be generated at the local level. So we'll keep an eye on that. And the last two look like they're going to end up in task summer. This is usually what happens in the legislature, right? When they can't really make a decision, they set up a summer task force. So it looks like the waiting study is that's going to get kicked down the road again for at least another year. And there'll be a task force looking at all the different plans for how we want to weight pupils. I was hopeful that might be a part of our budgeting process next year, but it doesn't look like that right now. And the other one is, and this could be important to Heartland over time, and that's the school construction and aid. There's been no school construction and aid for probably over 20 years. And so, luckily we got an HVAC system updated through some of that other money. And that was huge in a lot of our buildings, including Heartland. I mean, Jim was able to garner almost $200,000 to revamp the HVAC system. But as we all know, there are other modifications to the Heartland building we've been talking about that would require some level of bonding. And without a state piece to that bonding, it really doesn't make it very affordable to the taxpayers. So that's going to go to a summer task force. They're going to gather some information. I really believe the state is going to have to tackle, this whole idea around state aid for school construction reasonably soon, because there are a lot of buildings that are in far worse shape than Heartland right now. But that's a big one. And last but not least, I want to continue to thank Scott. This is not legislation, but Scott is your representative on the negotiations team. We've met several times. We are still meeting. We were going to have a meeting tomorrow. Wednesday, but it's been postponed till next Wednesday. What we're trying to do is we're trying to settle on a contract before the end of the year, so we don't have to do what we did last year and go into a year without a contract. So we'll keep you posted. Everything right now is confidential, but Scott does a good job representing this board, and he's probably the veteran now on that negotiating team. So thanks for all the time, Scott, you put into that. We'll keep you posted on that too. That's all I've got, unless anybody has questions.
Thank you, David.
I'm still worried about this literacy thing. I don't want more focus to be on letters and words.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah,
Younger ages.
Angie and I are also because it sort of flies in the face of some of what's in our strategic plan, right? Not that literacy, I mean, but to me, I think sometimes we overcomplicate. You know, when you look at those kids that come in as readers to us at 3, 4, 5 years old, it's not a very complicated formula. It's because they've been exposed to books and people are reading to them and they're reading and they're doing, and I don't want to put, I was not an elementary teacher. So, I mean, I don't want Christine to look at me like, oh boy, it's really simple. But I mean, I'm worried too, Nicole, because I don't want an onslaught of the phonics war again, or what are we going to do? I mean, I just think sometimes we overcomplicate this issue, but that's just me.
I'm not saying that I'm against literacy. Just am saying that some kids are ready to learn at different time periods, and when we shove it down their throat, they're not learning other things.
I know.
Hey, David, what about changes in how Heartland and other communities pay tuition to independent schools? Any new?
No big movement there. I know that got stuck in a committee at one point. I'm not sure. I know there was also some controversy. I don't know whether anybody saw this, but there was some controversy over the last 2 appointments to the State Board of Education. You know, they were one of them was and I know this person pretty well because he was a 20-year former headmaster of St. Johnsbury Academy, which is a private school. Not that that's it just didn't seem. But more importantly, it was 2 white males that got appointed to, and again, it just. I know the governor took a lot of heat on it. I heard that the Senate was going to take it up. I guess there is a hearing structure where they have to listen to these 2 candidates. I didn't hear what happened after that, but I haven't heard anything, Scott, about private school tuition. I thought you were going to ask me about something else, but I know. I texted Elizabeth. I'm also trying to find out what's going on with open meeting law and how much longer we can all meet like this. Because I think there's debate in Montpelier about the pluses and minuses of this format, right? That there's been greater turnout at meetings. They found that across the state. People have more accessibility to meetings. Also, there's a lot of time saved by not driving to the meeting and driving back to the meeting. That's especially the case with me. But I also know that there are some people that really kind of miss that in-person work. But I have not heard anything yet about whether or not that we're going to be allowed to continue to do this for much longer. Has anybody heard anything about that? All right, we'll see what Elizabeth says, because she's right there in Montpelier. So
okay, so I'm going to try and reconstruct our agenda at this point. We just finished the superintendent's report, and let's see. So I think we have covered the budget update, which I added. I think we've covered the recovery plan update. I think we have covered the outdoor equipment update. I think we've covered TMP scores from April and the restructuring team and resignations. So that leaves the 3 things is the anti-racism task force, the building committee, and town meeting prep. That job with everyone else? Okay. So anti-racism task force update. And at this point, I think we need to call it something else. And I'm going to turn the update over to David.
Right, good. And I've actually started to call it the anti-racism, the internal anti-racism and equity task force. I mean, we can come up with a variety of names, but essentially the supervisory union board has 2 policies on their plate. You know, one is the anti-racism policy, the other is the equity policy. We'll be discussing those next Monday. But in the meantime, through all of this hard work, we've had this internal, you know, aside from the board task force, or what might be considered the external task force, you know, we've had this internal group of about 25 people You know, these are very passionate staff members, support staff members, board members, administrators, and even a couple of families that expressed some early interest in this topic, right, around equity and anti-racism. So the idea was that once we got the policies in at least some draft form, that we would then turn this work over to this internal task force, which is going to be more responsible for the implementation, bringing it out to the larger community, and that's where we are right now. This task force is going to be meeting starting this week, and also the SU board authorized the hiring of a consultant to help us through this work. This is very delicate work. I don't claim to be an expert in this at all, but we have contracted at the behest of the SU board with Mosaic Education Network and a Dr. Melissa Crum, C-R-U-M. She does this work all over the nation, and now she can do this work relatively affordably because we're in this environment, right? We're doing everything virtually. If we had to pay for hotel and meals and room and all that stuff, we couldn't do it. But the couple of meetings that I've had with her, she's incredibly poised and professional, and so she's going to lead this task force starting the only nights she had, at least for the next couple of weeks, were Friday evenings. So we've got a couple of 4:30 to 6:30 meetings starting this Friday night. But I think, you know, again, it's probably not like a dinner and a movie on a Friday night, but I think she's going to be engaging and really. And I also got a sense, because nobody really pushed back and said, "Oh, Friday, can you try to work something else out?" I think this group of staff members, and there are a fair number from Heartland, by the way, are really raring to go, and they want to do this work. They see it as a priority. And as you know, I sent out my weekend update, the beginnings of those draft policies. I expected to get an onslaught. I mean, I only got a few pieces of hate mail and no death threats, that's a step up, really, and actually several positive emails back from people who really just applauded board members and administrators for keeping this issue on the front burner. And so I think, and this is what Melissa wants to do with this task force. She wants to explain the complexities of bringing this kind of a policy or this kind of work to a larger group of people, because, you know, we're at a time in our history where, and I won't get into all the details because this is a very intelligent group, and I'm sure you're paying very close attention to even what's going on as just as early as 2 hours ago in the Derek Chauvin case and all the stuff that's happening. And so you got to be really careful, because what I'm seeing is the reaction to not having the right language and the reaction to not pushing the agenda gently and compassionately is you really get the twist on it that, well, this is also racist because you're belittling a whole group of white people who are just trying to do their best, and they're trying to love each other. And so it's very complicated work. And what I like about Melissa's approach is she basically said to me, slow it down here a little bit, because you've got to have these conversations. You've got to develop a common language, and you've got to get a sense of everybody's background and what they bring to this issue. So I think it's going to be really a good piece of work, because I don't think she's not one of these far left. She really wants to do this well, so we don't alienate anybody well, that's impossible, but we alienate as few people as we can, because everybody's trying their best and doing what they think is right. So anyhow, Friday night will be the kickoff. I think that the people that were on the external team should be there. I think that I think that when they see a couple of board members and administrative faces, I think it helps our staff to see that we think this is important. So that's where we are. And I didn't
Did
mean
you send an invite to the original?
I
board?
sent, no, I have not sent the invite out yet. But
yeah, get that on the books.
well, I did send the letter out with save the dates, but I didn't, and that's, I'm just waiting. She's sending me also a very quick, she said very quick survey that she wants all the task force members to fill out. So she was going to get that to me either tonight. I checked, it's not, but she said, oh, first thing in the morning. And then I'll get that invite out to everybody with that link. It's going to be on Zoom. It's her link. She'll control.
Are we going to that?
What's that?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Are we doing that? The
David's referring to.
Yes, the people, well, what did you say? What was the question, Colleen?
the people that are on the task force
Right.
from the SU, the board members, are we attending that?
Yes, you should be. You'll be invited to that. Yeah, not all the board members, but the board members who were on the task force. Yeah. So
we should get that in the calendar as soon as possible.
Did you say it was this Friday?
It'll go out tomorrow morning.
I think it's Thursday this week, David, isn't it?
No,
22nd?
no, hold on a second. I'll tell you exactly when it is. It is the 23rd at 4:30.
Okay. I have it.
Yeah, the first three meetings were Friday evenings, 2 weeks apart, and then the last one is on a Thursday. It's June 17th. And part of it is because she booked so solid, and the SU board said they wanted to get started on this work, and so I grabbed the times that she had, and so that's where we are. But I'll get that out to everybody, and yes, it will include the board members that were part of that task force.
Thank you, David. And to everybody else, when we sent out an RFP to get responses to the SU of people that we were thinking of hiring. And there were not a lot of responses because a lot of people are fully booked and said, if you want to do something, I can do it in October or November. And so we wanted to move faster than that. And Melissa responded, and there was concern that she was out of state, but she also sent along a TED Talk that she had done that was phenomenal. And so I'll try to forward that. And if I don't forward that, let me know that I didn't forward that as soon as we get off this meeting. Because if you guys want to kind of get to know where she's coming from, it's worth listening to this.
Nikki, could you repeat the name and the organization again?
It's Melissa Crum and what is it, Mosaic?
Yeah, it's a Mosaic Educational Network. Yeah, let me make sure I've got that right. Yeah, Mosaic Education Network. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you can find her online. I think I also sent the website link to everybody. I'll certainly send that out again if we need to, but that would be good to see the TED Talk too. Yeah, she's good at at least from what I can see, she's very good at what she does. And I think we have to have somebody facilitate this work. This is going to be very tricky work.
Agreed. Okay. Yeah, I want to change the name, but we'll work on that later.
Yeah.
It's confusing, but
I agree. And a matter of fact, I'm not even sure it's the right name for the policy, but we can talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a building committee update, but I don't see Sarah. So I may.
I'm here.
Okay.
I just cut out. I'm fooling around with it. There it goes. Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Okay. So Christine and Nikki and I spoke a couple of weeks ago, just to sort of come up with a plan for moving ahead with the building committee. And the idea is that there's, as Ed told us, there's a lot of money around, and how can we make sure that we're really being proactive in trying to identify opportunities for building projects at Heartland Elementary School, and to do some of the planning so that we're ready to go if when these opportunities arise. And so based
I just
on
want to clarify on the funding really quickly. There's a lot of money that is being tossed around as coming down the pipe soon. We're not talking about extra leftover budget. We're talking about when state and federal agencies are like, okay, you could do school construction. So yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and sorry, it looks like my camera went out again, but I'll just talk and maybe it'll come back. So we spoke about moving forward with the building committee, and we want to put out a call for letters of interest, and those will be sent to Christine, and we'll try to get the committee up and running. I think we said sort of later this spring so that we could start meeting over the summer was the idea. And just in order to keep it from, sort of going off in a lot of different directions, based on previous work that other building committees had done, and that, conversations that everyone has had, we identified sort of 4 main areas of interest for this committee. And one would be this question of, do we need a theater / cafeteria? As we were talking about kids having lunch in their classrooms for the foreseeable future, we might want to expand the definition of cafeteria a little bit, community meeting room, but also theater to support our drama program, and some component to support our wonderful food program, and to take the pressure off the gym. Another area of interest was the outdoor learning spaces and some of the things we've talked about in the 17-acre woods. A third area was making classrooms more, what's the word, Christine? More able to be used for integrated and cooperative teaching opportunities.
Yeah. So if teachers want to do some co-teaching, the space is available for them to do that with a larger group of students.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Possibly modular walls that could be open to make a bigger space, things like that. And then the fourth area was the perennial question of the main office, and wanting to think about a more secure and just a more welcoming, a more efficient configuration for the main office. So those are sort of the 4 areas, and we'll do a quick, as part of the town meeting informational meeting, we'll do a quick little discussion of that, and say that we're looking for people who are interested to join this building committee. Is there anything else I forgot?
Nope. Thank you, Sarah. That was really good. And we'll figure out, Christine, we should check a slide in for Sarah.
Yep.
To talk about, which is, I guess, a great transition to our next, actually, so quickly to the board. I hope everybody's okay with the direction that the building committee is going in. This is something that we talked about doing over a year ago, and some things got in the way. So our last item on our agenda is last minute town meeting prep. And so most of you were on the call that we had to practice clicking on our Zoom buttons. For those of you who were not on it, you received an individual Zoom link from Thomas Bishop, and your link is your own link, so it'll automatically come up with your name and your information. So Thomas is going to send out another set of Zoom links on Friday, I think, just so that they're at the top of our inbox so that we have something to click on for the meeting on Saturday morning at 11. And then Christine and Angie and I have worked on a presentation. I feel like we presented it to the board, didn't we? Yeah, last time. Yeah.
I just had one clarifying question, Nikki. So after that meeting, we talked about embedding the articles on slides, which I did. It's my understanding that Angie's going to go first, as she's done in other SUs, and present her slideshow around the portrait and the strategic plan. And then I was going to go and present kind of the future, the direction we're headed. And then I put the articles after that. Does that?
I saw that.
I don't know where you want them, but I
think that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because then we go through the first 4 articles, and then the 5th article is the doozer of the budget, and then we'll present the budget information. So I think that, and I want to hear from other board members. I think the flow we're talking about is Angie will present the strategic plan and the portrait of a graduate work that happened, and then Christine will present where the school is now and where we're going. And then we'll get into the budgeting stuff. And I personally like that flow because most of the people that come don't ever come into the building. So I think it's important to give them an update, like for them to even know what's happening.
So Nikki, just a quick question, because I know you've been talking a little bit with Matt and with David. So is Matt only going to need to read? He doesn't need a visual when he reads Article 1. He doesn't want a visual when he reads Article 2.
So I think what he was saying, and I want to double check this with him. I think what he was saying is that he will have each article up. Oh, I think Sarah might have a connection to Matt. This is the handy part.
She's asking him now. Because you got those all written out on PowerPoint, so it's just whether he wants it up on the screen.
Well, yeah.
And he's got about 107 of them to do for the town. So I'm joking, but it didn't sound like he's going to have a visual, right, to lead that through, right?
What'd you learn, Sarah?
He's right here. He's going to answer. Hello. He's going to answer the question.
Hey, Matt. So you had mentioned. You had mentioned that you had the article. You were going to put the article on the screen. Are we going to have 2 things sharing?
No. So Dave is going. So what I was saying was for the town version, Dave is going to actually have the article up.
Okay.
So people can see it while we're also talking about it. And my suggestion, I'm not sharing anything through either meeting.
Yeah.
If you all or whoever is controlling the sharing want to do the same, it might be a good idea just until you get into the presentation so that if someone comes in late, they know what it is we're all talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So, and just so you know, what we just talked about is that I think we're going to give more of a generalized update at the beginning of the meeting and then get into the articles later. And so Angie is going to update on the portrait of a graduate work that we've done. Christine is going to give it just a general layout of the school for people that aren't not physical layout, like kind of how school is working,
where we're headed.
An update. Yeah. Right. And then we'll get into the articles because it'll flow better. Because then we'll get to the budget article and just talk about budget.
So that, I mean, I'm fine with that. What I was told was that you need to do the articles, though, in the order that they were warned.
Yes.
And you have to do, I mean, whatever the League of Cities and Towns came down with, I was going to have all kinds of creative ways to actually set the stage for the town meeting. And they were quite loud in, no, you shouldn't do that. You should take it as it comes up in the order of the warned meeting. I mean, I'm willing to be more flexible and, you know, past informational meetings that I have attended, and I have attended some, they were a little looser, right, than a normal town meeting. But I'm just sharing what it is that I was told by.
Yeah, no, that's actually really helpful, and I guess I should look at the warning again.
They're in order in the presentation, Nikki.
Yeah, they're in order in the presentation. We just are giving an introduction to the school
first, right?
Yeah,
first, which isn't part of. I mean, it's really an introduction to the school, which is not part of the budget conversation.
Right, but my whole point. I mean, you need to call the meeting. I need to call the meeting to order.
Right.
And you need to go through the agenda that was presented.
Exactly, which is the articles.
Right. And typically that means having to go through the things of this is voted by Australian ballot, that is voted by Australian ballot, blah, blah, blah. And then when it comes time for the proposed budget, that would normally be when you then launch into, here is our beautiful school.
Right. Okay, so I think that we should, based on what Matt's saying, I think we should reorder it that way, which is fine.
Yeah.
It would only be.
No, I think that was really helpful advice. I was on the fence. From a presentation standpoint, I think the other way works better. From a legal standpoint, this way works better.
I think that's right. And I know that's exactly what we did in Wethersfield, and it went really well. And that's exactly what we did in Mount Scottney. So I think you just take article by article, go in the order of the warning, and then when you get to the budget, it still is okay at that point for either you, Nikki, or Christine to say we'd like to start with just a general overview of what we've been working on, and I think that's fine. And then,
so there's 4 articles, am I correct? And then we do the first article for community consideration, and that's the budget amount. Do they all is that one included at the beginning, Matt?
I think that one's called Article 5 now.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, we need to double check it.
that should be Article 5.
There's a bunch of perfunctory ones that basically say there will be school board members. I don't have it up right now, but there will be school board members elected by Australian ballot.
Yep.
And then Article 2, there will be
blah
blah blah. And then when you get to the meaty one, which is the budget one, right? There's the one, Nicole, that you may have some questions about loaning. No.
There's a capital reserve article this year.
There's capital reserve article, and then there's the
there always is
money to giving money to, I don't know.
Yeah. Will the school pay taxes to the town treasurer?
Right.
You can imagine if unexpected, attendance, someone might say, "What? Why would you do that?" So,
Well, there've been 2 listserv comments on it too. So, it people are questioning it, and Ed gave me an explanation, so I'll try to repeat that. Okay, I think. So I think Christine and Angie, we should get together
before Saturday.
Before Saturday, and not Friday night, since we're all
and not Friday night
anyway. Thank you, Matt.
You bet. Let me know what and if you want to touch base on Wednesday or Thursday, happy to sort of run through what you're anticipating in this. So
yeah, and I'll send you a copy of the presentation just so you know. Not that I'm expecting you to do anything with it, but just so that you can flip through and just kind of generally know what's happening. So Christine and Angie will figure something out.
Yeah.
Later. Okay. So thanks, Matt. So we need to, we already took care of all of our items for action, unless anybody can think of any other ones.
No, I think, and just to get back to the school information meeting, I think, Nikki, the last time we talked about it and kind of did a dry run through, I think just what Matt said is what we talked about, right? To just go in order of the article. So I think it'll be fine. I think it'll work fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll just, thank you, Scott. Okay, so setting the agenda. So the first thing we're going to have to do is reorg.
Yep, reorg. And Lori knows how to do that agenda, or that part of the agenda.
So we have to reorg. And then we'll do the principal's report.
Nikki, speaking about reorg and going back to the
What are you talking about when you're saying reorg?
We need to reorganize as a board. So we need to elect the chair and
okay.
clerks. And
what are
all
we
that.
reorging?
She thought it was technical.
Reorging.
We're all going to reorg.
We're reorging.
Use full words. It's easier.
You may not want to be there that night. We're going to reorg.
Because we'll have
If I'm
elected
not
new
there,
people.
then I'll get assigned something.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't miss.
Yeah, this is not one to miss. So we need to re-elect all of the officer positions on the board. I guess it's not really elect, although it is elect. So, okay. So we'll do reorganization and then the principal's report, the superintendent's report. We'll have an anti-racism update.
Yep. Probably have a town meeting update.
Yeah, maybe we'll put that first. Town meeting.
And we may act, I'm sure by then we'll have
hiring.
The hiring for sure. And I was also going to say I think by then you'll already know the schedule update, but just sort of calendar schedule stuff for next year. I mean, we can have a conversation about that.
Do you want those listed separately, or should we have the recovery plan, the hiring, and the schedule under the principal report, since that's sort of where it comes naturally?
Yeah, if you can put those as bullets under there, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Good point.
Unless you argue with that, Christine.
No, that's great. That's perfect.
Besides, it makes the agenda look shorter.
Yeah, exactly. Although we need to keep the agenda shorter because reorganization takes time. Will we need a recovery plan update? That was under the principal's report. Is that what you just said, Wendy? Okay.
Yeah, we'll put it there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that is the building committee. I don't think we'll have an update on at that point. So I think we'll postpone that. Sarah, you were muted, but I think I understood what you said.
Negotiations.
What was that?
Under David, negotiations.
Yeah, you could do that. Yep.
Okay.
Negotiation update and legislative update if you want to put that, because we usually fold those two things in.
Yep. What is the date of this meeting?
Yeah, that's a good question.
May 17.
Oh, okay.
May 17th.
Okay.
Why are you laughing?
Everything okay, Nikki?
Yeah, I'll figure it out. It's my mom's 75th birthday. So I'm trying to figure that out right now. So, okay. We'll keep that date and we'll just see what happens.
It'll be a short meeting. We'll keep it short.
Yeah, it's already not short. Okay. So I think that's it for the agenda. We have a tentative executive session. I'd like to have a really quick executive session to talk about personnel. And then, but I'm thinking like 5 minutes. Is that good with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. So we have
adjourn. Just one final thing I did put under the principal report, just like end of year, since it'll be after May 10th. So you'll probably have more details about what that will look like specifically.
Good.
Thank you, Wendy.
Wendy, we love you.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
I move.
Okay, Sarah,
Second.
Beth seconded.
Beth. Okay. All those in favor of moving to executive session to discuss personnel, say aye. Aye.
Yep.
Okay.